Welcome back, amazing business owners, to another episode of Business Straight Up, the podcast for creatives, business owners, business women, anyone who wants to make a living doing what they love. I am so excited to have you here today. Thank you for showing up, for pressing play. And we're going to talk today about, we talked about a whole bunch of different things. Today's guest is Erika Diaz Castro. And I am so excited for you to hear this conversation. We are going to talk about self-awareness, getting to know yourself and what you really need, not only in your business, but in your life. Because when you're in alignment with that, you will see your results skyrocket exponentially. We're going to talk about thriving instead of just surviving. What does that actually look like? We're going to talk about consistency and habits and integrity and commitment. All of these things that are crazy important with Erika. And if you love this episode, can you head on over to iTunes and leave a review? Go ahead. You can press pause now. Did you do it? Welcome back. If you take a screenshot before you hit submit and email it over to hello@businessstraightup.com, I will send you a free gift because all the free stuff is good, right? So we would love to have those reviews. It helps me to know how I can help you, how I can better serve you, and it helps us get amazing guests. Have an amazing rest of your day. We are going to jump into this episode and let's talk with Erika. Hey there, awesome people. I am Brooke Summer and you are listening to Business Straight Up, the podcast for creative entrepreneurs to learn, connect, grow, and build the business and life that they dream of. Welcome, let's get going and dive right in. Hello, amazing business owners. Welcome back to another episode of Business Straight Up. Are you ready for this awesomeness today? Today's guest is Erika Diaz Castro, who is an amazing business owner, podcaster, and loves helping female leaders bridge the gap between their personal and professional growth so that they can break through those personal limitations that we all hear in our brains and create the life that they love. And before I officially invite Erika to join, I want to share a note in your earbuds, on your car stereo, wherever you're listening to this, walking the dogs. You are worth the life that you want. You deserve everything you desire and you can have it. Sorry, I had to throw that in there because I feel so strongly about every woman on the planet knowing that. And I know Erika does too. We're going to talk about that. Men too, but especially for the ladies. Erika, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit more about you? What has brought you to this point in your life? What has your journey looked like? And what have you learned along the way?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you again for having me on the show. I'm really excited to be here and to share my story and what I've learned. I started in the fitness world as a fitness coach, and I was doing weight loss coaching for a while after personal training. I primarily trained and did nutrition for performance athletes like Olympic weightlifters, pretty much anyone who needed to make weight and was performing at a high level where nutrition really is very key to their overall preparation. And then I got into the competing world for bodybuilders. And I was a bodybuilder back in the day. I say bodybuilder, but I was a bikini competitor for a couple years.
Yeah.
So a very extreme sport. And I worked
That's
with
brutal.
very extreme people. Yeah. So because I was known in the weight loss space, a lot of women came to me with the problem of weight loss. And when I was working with primarily women in corporate America, I learned very quickly that weight loss wasn't the problem. Their weight wasn't the problem. It was all a lot deeper. A lot of stuff that wasn't even mentioned in their like intake surveys and questionnaires. And over time, you start to realize the patterns of people, and especially high performing women leaders who were leading organizations, teams in Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies. I was working with women in the NFL, women who were in JP Morgan, like in the banking industry, at Facebook, at Google, and they're always on, right?
Yeah.
Always on, very ambitious and because you want to succeed in your career, especially as women growing up in this age, we want to crush it just as much as our guy counterparts are. And they were going above and beyond, but many times neglecting their personal growth, their wellness, and kind of spiraling into this like pattern of burnout and trying to recover. I didn't take my coaching to the next level until I was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was like the wake up call for me, like, hey, if you're going to do what you want to do, you better do it and not wait for permission.
Yeah.
Because I was in corporate America too, but I was more so treating my side business as a side business and not
Yes.
as the goal to really take myself to another level. So after that diagnosis, I was just married. We had just moved to California from the East Coast, and I was told that I had lymphoma. And I was like, okay, I could do what they tell me, but I know it's going to wreak havoc on my body. And I just didn't feel very settled. And I'm a woman of faith, so I prayed about it. I talked to my husband about it. I really didn't disclose that information to a lot of people just to protect our own privacy and peace. And we decided together as a family, he and I, that I would tackle cancer naturally. So
Oh
I
my
opted
gosh.
out of chemo and radiation,
Yeah.
and I focused on all the holistic and integrative approaches I could, primarily resting more because I wasn't resting as much as I could because I was working so much.
That's hard.
It's so hard, especially
Yeah.
when you pack your days with so many things,
Yes.
and really reducing the triggers that were bringing me into like stressful seasons for prolonged periods of time.
Yeah.
So stress is going to be part of our normal day to day, but if we are in like chronic seasons of stress, I think it's a very different story. So I prioritize rest, my nutrition. I really got back to the basics, and I slowed down a little bit. And within a few months, I started to get better, and it's been at bay. It hasn't completely gone into remission, but it hasn't spread in 4 years. So it's
That's
been,
amazing.
yes, thank you.
Oh
It's
my
definitely
gosh.
been, a test of patience, but it's transferred over to my business in so many ways. Just having that mindset of, I'm going to put my head down, I'm going to do what I can, I'm going to focus on my priorities. And it really helps me serve the women I serve much more effectively.
Yes. I love that you said stress will be normal. It is a normal part of our lives, but we can also choose how we respond, right?
Yeah.
We can choose to internalize that stress. We can choose to worry even more about the things that are stressing us, or we can
Hmm.
choose to say, I have no control over this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let it go and we'll figure it out.
Exactly. Accepting it, adapting to the situation that you're in instead
Yes.
of numbing, which was something that I did for a really long time. I actually struggled with addiction for a while, and breaking through that and being able to feel and to be aware of how I was dealing with stress otherwise was very powerful and in a way freeing, you
Well,
know.
and I feel like addiction, like as soon as we hear that word, we think of like alcohol or drugs, but the reality is it could be something like social media. It could be
Hmm.
something like food. Addiction can mean so many different things. And if you're going to anything to numb yourself from whatever's
Hmm.
really happening in your life, it's a problem. It doesn't matter whether it's alcohol, drugs, social media, any of that.
Yeah, yeah. One of the intake questions when I was a fitness coach was, how do you deal with stress? And if I got 10 questionnaires and looked at them side by side, without fail, 7 to 8 of them said smoking, drinking wine. Some women did struggle with like binge eating and then
Mhm.
having that shame, which was why they were coming to me because they were gaining weight, and all of the things that really go into instant comfort
Mhm.
and don't actually help us face the problem and move through it and
Yeah.
grow through it.
Yes, absolutely. I sorry, I have all these questions I want to ask you.
Yeah.
But let's dive in first with a not so light subject, although I feel like all of these are not so light, but that's a good thing. They're
Mm-hmm.
things that need to be talked about. Let's talk about alignment. I know that
Sure.
I have taught this in my boudoir marketing class. If you are not completely aligned and on board with what you're doing, you will absolutely see your work and your revenue start to suffer. Have you experienced this in your own life?
The short answer is yes.
Yeah.
And the longer answer is in multiple areas of my life. So it wasn't just in my business, it was also in my personal life and my relationships and my relationship with myself. And one of the ways, so I define alignment as the experience of wholeness, acceptance, integrity, gratitude, purposefulness. And if you are off in any of those specific areas, it's tied to every part of your life because
Yes.
every part of our life is interconnected, right? So with my business, I was so unclear and so like I knew that I brought value to the table, and I knew working with the women I worked with, there were breakthroughs and there were strides made, and women had these aha experiences with me. And when I did weight loss, they lost the weight and it stayed off. When I stopped doing weight loss, I was helping women with their personal growth, but I was lacking in my own experience of acceptance and integrity because I was still experiencing shame from like my past decisions. And that was transferring over from my personal life into my professional life. And I experienced doubt. I was hesitant to make offers, to market myself, to put myself out there. And I was more afraid of someone saying no to me than more willing to open the door for someone to say yes.
And you said shame from past decisions. I know that's something that I still struggle with is guilt. Like I made a mistake and
Mm-hmm.
I'm still feeling that guilt. Do you have any recommendations or any steps for someone that might be feeling some guilt for something that they made a mistake on in their past that they still haven't let go of?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The first thing I would recommend is when you are becoming aware of that guilt, don't run from it, create space for it, and learn to, just as you're committed and disciplined in showing up for your business, learn to be that committed and disciplined in showing up for yourself and allowing yourself to feel that and to really dive into the root of that shame and that guilt. And when you think you've gotten to the answer you want about why you're there, ask yourself why a couple more times. I think we don't ask enough questions sometimes, and that is really where we can falter in business and in our personal growth.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, that's the perfect segue because we're going to talk about that why. I know that I have done some of this with my students, and it's kind of become a little bit of a joke now. My past students will hear that I'm teaching a class coming up, and they'll
Mm-hmm.
tell me, "Don't make them cry." Um, and it's not intentional, but this exercise tends to bring up some tears and some past stuff. Asking those hard questions, in particular the why, can be a crazy enlightening way to look at some of the reasons behind what you're really doing in your life and in your business. How have you used this exercise, the asking why over and over again, to really bring to light some of the things that weren't serving you in your business so you can let go of them and move forward?
So, one of the most foundational pieces of my approach to coaching is focusing on purpose and making sure that that is explicitly clear at the forefront of any coaching relationship I have with a client.
Mhm.
And if that is not abundantly clear, if there's any question or doubt surrounding that, that's the first thing that we'll work on. With regard to my own approach to business, I have to keep that very thing, my purpose, at the kind of the setting it with every day I set an intention, and it is to stay aligned with my purpose. So I have to, kind of write it out for myself or just acknowledge that that is the driving factor or force of what I'm doing, because every single day we're going to go through things. As soon as you make a decision in your mind that you're going to make a change, everything will come against you and, become a challenge, whether you intend for it to happen that way or not. So if you aren't focused on why, if you aren't really making that a point of reflection pretty frequently, It's really easy to get sidetracked, and it is easy to be overwhelmed and focus on the overwhelm versus how to overcome the overwhelm or kind of maneuver that. And the process of growth is already somewhat uncomfortable and painful. And it just becomes so much more painful if you aren't abundantly clear on that why.
Yeah.
So
And
always
that
doing
shiny
that
object
first.
syndrome too, right? Like the shiny
Oh my
object
God, it's the
is
worst.
is so much harder when you don't know exactly why you're doing what you do
Mm-hmm.
because you're constantly distracted, like looking for the next big thing because you're not focused on exactly what you need to do.
Yeah, that diligence, it kind of dissipates when you are looking toward the next beginning.
Yes.
And I find that even that is a form of addiction for some people, like addiction to new
Ooh.
beginnings.
Ouch. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I find that as business owners, we always think that there's this finish line, right? Like once I hit six figures, once my list is this big, once I have this many
Hmm.
clients, once I have this type of revenue. And the reality is that we're always growing. We're constantly growing and
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah. I think measuring your milestones is really powerful
Yeah.
because you can celebrate that, be present in that moment, and still acknowledge that there's work to be done. No one's ever arrived, right? No one who's living. So when we can work towards something and have that purpose, that why in mind, I think it really helps us to, yes, be proud of our accomplishments, but still be humble enough
Yeah.
to know that there's somewhere else to go from here. And I can be here right now and really enjoy it and embrace it and reflect on what it took to get here, which is crucial to growth. Having to, recount the lessons is part of that
Yeah.
experience. But then putting your best foot forward and continuing to build on those really effective habits and continue to mature in your own walk.
Yes. Well, and I love that you said to look at what it took to get there because so often we get to where we think we're going to be successful and then we're like, well, okay, now what do I do? And we didn't
Yep.
think about all of the things that we've learned. The person that we are today is not the same
Hmm.
person that we were a year ago. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yes. And so thank God for that, right?
Right? I know, right? Oh my gosh, that's so true. Today's episode is brought to you by the new and improved mentoring program with Business Straight Up. If you are struggling with something specific in your business and you need help that is personalized, I am excited to announce that I have officially added mentoring one-on-one back into my business. So what the heck is mentoring? Well, the nice part is that it's custom based on you and your needs for your business. I can help you with marketing or sales or branding and so many aspects of running a business. Mentoring is really part education, part accountability, and part inspiration. I want you to walk away from a mentoring session with me feeling on top of things, with clarity on where you want to go and how to get there and the steps to take to actually make it happen. If coaching or mentoring is something that you have been thinking about, it is time to get some details to see if we're a good fit. Go to businessstraightup.com/mentoring to learn more and reach out so that we can start working together. I can't wait to see where you go in your business in 2021. In our kind of pregame chat, you had
Hmm.
mentioned that being out of alignment can mean overcompensating in other
Yeah.
areas, leading to habits that are really more for survival instead of thriving. What can this look
Hmm.
like for a business owner in their business?
So I'm going to list a couple of things. They might
Mhm.
resonate with some people, some might not, but I have a feeling a couple will.
Yeah.
And consistently, these show up as symptoms of being out of alignment. They can look like not being sure why you're doing things, whether they're small tasks or huge projects,
Mm-hmm.
being in a space of doubt and seeking external validation or approval. And that can
Ooh.
be on just a product idea or a service idea or even a marketing strategy for business owners, especially those solopreneurs. kind of getting lost in the shuffle of the many things and not knowing your priorities,
Mm-hmm.
that is certainly a sign. I would also say that when the bigger picture is unclear, it's a huge sign that you're out of alignment. And I think that happens when you start to experience the overwhelm that inevitably comes with running a business,
Yeah.
but not having proper guidance, whether it's a business coach or someone just to bounce ideas off of. And I know I went through that at the beginning when I was like, I want to say just starting in fitness. I was like, am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? There's so much of everything, right? Like you have all these ideas, your brain doesn't turn off and you don't know where to focus.
Yeah.
A couple of other symptoms include lacking confidence just in making everyday decisions. So, brand colors or, the language in your copy. Sometimes I've had conversations with some of my accountability buddies and they're considering this font or that font for their freebie. And I'm like, girl, just get that thing out. Like we
Right.
just need it out in the world already. No one cares.
Yes.
People pleasing is another thing, like wanting everyone to love everything that you're doing. And, when you're niching down and choosing your ideal client, you do not need everyone to love it. You want to polarize some people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that lack of purpose or no clear sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And in any way, they can show up for just a second, but they can show up in, kind of becoming a chronic issue. And they will show up more frequently when you don't address them.
Yes, definitely. I saw a quote recently that said, it's okay to not be for everyone because you don't even like everyone.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
How funny is that we expect everyone to like us when we don't even like everyone else?
It's so true. There's too many people on the planet. Are you kidding?
Right? I know. Can you imagine? What are we up to? 7 billion now?
I think so. I think it's
Something
close
like
to
that.
8.
Oh
Yeah.
my
And I mean,
gosh.
in this country alone, there's over 30 million people.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
imagine and just tapping into that, thinking that every single person will be for you.
Right? Oh yeah. It's
Yeah.
just not going to happen. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. It is a beautiful thing. Hopefully, people can shift away from that narrative.
Yes. What are some of the habits that have served you most while running a successful business?
Consistency in everything. I would say the most helpful habit I've developed is showing up for my own commitments. So, not to the thing that I signed up for someone else, but if I committed to waking up at 4:30, waking up at 4:30. If I committed to getting a workout in today, getting a workout in today, even if it wasn't at the intensity or the duration that I initially planned, I showed up.
Yeah.
And when you do that consistently in just your everyday routine items and activities, it transfers over to what you do
Yes.
in your business, to what you do with others. You're a much more reliable person for other people when you're a reliable person for yourself.
Well, and why is it so much harder to keep our word to ourselves than it is to other people? That's really hard.
Yeah. I've asked that question to a couple of clients in the past. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
do you need my help? Why aren't you able to commit to yourself?
Yeah.
And most frequently, the response is that they can convince themselves because we're working with like really smart women, right?
Yeah.
Like these
Yeah.
women are high performers, they're high achieving.
They're badasses. Yes.
Absolutely. And you can come up with a way to convince yourself, like, oh, I don't have to do this. Like,
We're good
if I
at
do
that.
it a little later, it's all good.
Yes.
You know, I'm a firm believer that when you set non-negotiables with yourself and you follow through on that,
Mhm.
you are then taking yourself to the next level and you can operate at greater lengths.
Yes.
So if you can get to the root cause of your inconsistencies and when did that start? Like, when did you
Mhm.
start to believe that you could give yourself a little bit and you took a mile, right?
Yeah.
You will get to the bottom of it, but you have to do something with that information. You
Yeah.
have to actually apply whatever learning and like see the path forward and see it through.
Yes, absolutely. I find it's much harder to keep my word to myself. Like, I'm going to get this done when no one else cares. It's just me.
Yeah.
But it's just so much harder. And I've also learned that I have, and we all do, even the guys have a different cycle that ebbs and flows. And there will be some days that you feel super motivated and some that you don't. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me personally, I have learned to batch the things that I need to do when I'm feeling super motivated so that
Mm-hmm.
on those days that I don't, I can honor my body and rest.
Yeah. Knowing yourself is so
Yeah.
huge. That awareness is really powerful and very much a tool that some of us don't use to our advantage.
Yes.
So I forget when, I want to say maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, in the circle I was in, there was a huge shift in awareness
Mm-hmm.
in the group I was in. And I was connected to a lot of different people, and there was this reading of self-help books, and people were starting to meditate and all of these things. And they applied these learnings to their physical pursuits more so because I was in the fitness space, but there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't this application of the learnings
Yeah.
to the rest of it, to
Yes.
the mental, to the emotional, to the spiritual side of things. And when you don't think I actually addressed the overcompensation piece, when you're struggling in one area, whether it's your
Mm-hmm.
physical wellness, your emotional, your mental wellness, or your spiritual wellness, your soul's purpose, you will overcompensate in another area of your life so that you can continue moving forward, because we want to continue to evolve. We want to
Mm-hmm.
continue to grow in some capacity, even if the longer term gains are sacrificed for shorter term results. And
Mm-hmm.
that lack of awareness, not taking the time to pause and reflect and really check in with yourself and give yourself what you need, is really detrimental to your overall progress, whether it's in business or in your personal life, because
Yes.
something is going to give.
Yes. It has to.
Yeah, that's how
Absolutely.
pressure works.
Yep. And it's human to want to grow and move forward, right? What's the saying? If you're not growing, you're dying. And it's
Yeah.
true. You're either growing and moving yourself forward or staying where you're at, which will eventually become stagnation. So
Yeah.
it's absolutely true. I love that. And knowing yourself is so important.
Yeah. Knowing yourself now. I think
Yes.
one of the things, I started working with a lot of women in transition in the last year and a half, and I'm seeing that they still view themselves through the lens of who they were a couple years back when they accomplished their last big thing. And they,
Mm.
like, mentally and emotionally haven't caught up to where they are now. And so the personal growth is not aligned with the professional growth, which is why I really focus on bridging that gap, because
Yeah.
they show up in the workplace and they crush it and they are wildly successful, right? We're talking about like powerful VPs,
Mm-hmm.
directors, C-suite women.
Yeah.
And who's not going to think that they're successful?
Mm-hmm.
They have these awesome titles,
Yeah.
these crazy salaries. They
Yes.
travel, they do the things, right? They can live wherever they want, and they do. And then when you break down the root cause of some of the issues they bring to the table, what they thought was the issue is not actually the issue. It was their issue like 2 years ago. So
Yeah.
just,
And how do we shed that old self, right? That's painful.
oh my
Like,
gosh.
it's so funny. Everyone wants to use this analogy of the caterpillar and the metamorphosis into a butterfly, but we don't realize like what the caterpillar actually goes through to get there. Their
Mm-hmm.
entire body like breaks down. I'm sure it
Yeah.
doesn't feel very good, but in the end, they
No.
emerge something totally different. And that
Yeah.
can be painful to walk through that and make that change. But ultimately, when you do,
Mm-hmm.
you're so much stronger.
So much stronger. Yep. And
Yes.
you can show up in a way that's going to really serve the impact you're meant to have.
Yes. Based on your gift, right? Everyone has a different gift.
Yes.
And the longer we ignore
Absolutely.
that, like the longer we're just shooting ourselves in the foot.
Yep. Or comparing ourselves to everybody else because I don't have her gift.
Right? Oh my gosh. And we all have our own individual gifts that are all beautiful in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Our
I love that.
superpowers.
Right? Superpowers.
Absolutely. Wear your cape and wear it proud.
Right? And not just at
Mm-hmm.
Halloween. That's what my daughter would say.
No.
Can I wear this every day? Yes, yes, you can.
Yes, I love that.
One thing that I know I have personally struggled with is a morning routine. I feel like so
Mm,
many people talk about their morning routines, but they don't take into account things like children or other
mm-hmm.
things that might be happening when you just can't put them on the back burner. Like with kids,
Yeah,
it doesn't work that way. What
yeah.
have been some of the game changers that you've seen in your own morning routine? And what advice do you have for someone who wants to implement a morning routine but feels overwhelmed with things that need their attention that they just can't put off?
This was a challenge for me when I became a mom.
Mhm.
So I can speak from experience. The number one thing I needed to prioritize was getting enough rest. And I talked about
Yes.
that at the beginning because it was essential for maintaining the condition that I'm managing without
Yes.
all the drugs.
Yes.
And because rest is so important, I kind of reverse engineered my day when my daughter came along and I went back to work. And I
Hmm.
asked myself, like, how much rest do I actually need? And when I say rest, I don't mean like I'm in bed and like fiddling on my phone. I mean like actually sleeping and dreaming before I
Hmm.
start to think again, like for the
Yes.
day. And for me, the sweet spot is 7.5 hours. So if I'm at like 7 to 8 hours, I'm in a really good spot. I don't need a lot of caffeine. I can do all the things. I don't take a nap in the middle of the day,
Mhm.
but I do make sure that I have like a timer so that it
Hmm.
reminds me to get to bed. And it's a non negotiable for me. So
Yeah.
I make sure I get enough rest because when I wake up, which these days is 4:30, I and the
That's
reason it's
crazy.
4:30, the reason it's 4:30 is
Hmm.
because my daughter was waking up early
Yeah.
and what I realized was that I really needed time for myself and
Yep.
not after a long day of doing. I needed time
Yes.
for myself to start and charge
Hmm.
up and then get in the mindset I needed to be in to do the
Yes.
things. So I get into bed typically like 9 and
Hmm.
then I'm asleep by 10 and I'll wake up like between 4:30 and 5. So when I am starting my day, my husband and I have a new routine now because his work schedule just changed. And I normally have like my journal time and my
Hmm.
prayer time in the morning, but now he and I do a devotional in the morning together and then I'll journal.
Okay.
So that is the time that I've set for myself to
Hmm.
set intentions for the day. I really get anything off my chest that
Hmm.
I woke up with. I really give myself space to acknowledge how I feel in the
Hmm.
morning and what I might need throughout the day, whether it's make sure you get a couple walks in, or I think today I just need to connect with like another woman on a similar journey. I really acknowledge the fears that I'm experiencing because my brain is always on
Hmm.
and I'm not afraid to go deep with myself and like go
Yeah.
there. So once I acknowledge it, I ask myself, like, what do I think I might need?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just a little extra help from like my husband.
Yeah.
So I'll ask him and I'll have that conversation and let him know, like, hey, I think I might have like a weird funk this morning. I really want to navigate that as best I can as your wife and as our daughter's mom, but I might need a little extra emotional support or maybe some physical support.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
And
think it's important, like you said, to feel the feels. Like when you are facing an emotion that comes up, as
mhm,
so many of us just want to stuff it, right? Like, I'm not feeling
yeah.
good. Oh, well, we have to feel good all the time. So,
Mhm.
how can we shift our perspective? And while that's important, I think it's also important to just feel it. And it's okay to feel it. And it's
Mhm.
okay to honor that because they're there for a reason.
Yeah, it's part of the experience of being a
Hmm.
human.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know anyone who really likes going through hard times, but every person I know who's overcome hard times appreciates them.
Yes.
Everything
Yes.
serves a purpose.
There's
So,
iron in the fire, right?
oh yeah, 100%. So, mornings are me time. And then
Yeah.
I do get some work done in the morning. I like to get some of my non negotiables out of the way. So I have a planner and I'll schedule into my day my priorities. And
Mhm.
usually my top two priorities for my business I get done in the morning so that it's done and
Yeah.
there's no question. Like I've come through for myself on that commitment.
And then if you get absolutely nothing else done because your daughter is having a weird day, then you can say at
Yeah.
least you got those two done.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely helpful in overcoming that urge to procrastinate, which a
Yes.
lot of people do. So just getting the thing out of the way. If you're a person who needs like a warm up task before you dive into the harder tasks or the more energy consuming tasks, then do that. But don't delay. Like, don't get into that bad habit.
Well, and again, it always comes back to knowing yourself, right? That self-awareness of knowing, like for me, I'm not a morning person. If I get up at 5, if I got up at 4:30 in the morning, I would be like a zombie for a
Yeah.
few hours. So I actually have a different time of day that I'm at my best.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I've learned that it's okay to let my kids play on their own for an hour while I take advantage of that super creative time so that I can get things done.
Yeah. Giving yourself grace is so important. And just
Yes.
knowing that, like, everyone is having their own experiences, your kids included. Like, they don't need our eyes on them. Well, they do if they're like small and crazy, like mine are. But they don't need our 100% undivided attention praising them all the time. And there's a time and place for that. But there's also a time for us to do the things that are contributing to their quality of life and also teaching them to come through for themselves in the future as well, and showing them that this is part of the experience, you know?
And that external validation is not what they should be looking for all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I wish I would have been reminded of a little more frequently when I was younger.
Yes. It's so funny. My daughter yesterday showed me a coloring sheet and she goes, "What do you think?" And I just opened my mouth. She goes, "I think it's beautiful. And I know that my opinion matters." I was like, "Oh, she's listening."
Yes. Go you, mama.
Well, we all learn from the things. And it's so funny with my kids being so far apart. I can see some of the things that I wish I had done with my older child that I now have grown as a person, right? 10 years is a long time, a lot of growth.
That's a whole lifetime for some people.
Right? Thank you so much for being here today, Erika. I
Oh, thank
know
you.
that your journey is inspiring. I can't believe some of the things that you have gone through and you continue to go through. And I know that you can touch so many business owners out there. For anyone that's listening and they want to learn more and they're like, where do I get in touch with this amazing lady? Where can they find you and connect with you?
Oh, thank you for having me. I would love to connect with any person who had any any type of takeaway. Definitely tag us if you have any takeaways. But you can head to my website, castrostrong.com. That's CASTRO strong.com, and connect with me there. I am available by email. You can email Erika at castrostrong.com. Or I'm actually not so active on Instagram these days, but I'm on LinkedIn, and it's Erika Diaz Castro.
Perfect. To all of the listeners and amazing business owners that have joined us, thank you so much for pressing play today. Maybe you're listening to a podcast, maybe you're watching on YouTube. This whole video thing is a little new to me, so we're figuring it out as we go, but I am truly honored that you press play to spend this time with Erika and I today. If you are someone that loves to help other people, if you can head on over to iTunes and leave a review, if you take a screenshot before you hit submit, email it to hello@businessstraightup.com. I have a free gift for you. And if you know of anyone that really wants to learn more or may need this information, maybe they need to hear that they need to give themselves a little grace right now, feel free to send this episode on over to them. We want to help as many people as possible. And I know that both Erika and I would so appreciate being able to serve all of these amazing business owners. So, hit pause now. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sometimes my brain goes faster than my mouth. Hit pause now. Leave a review on iTunes if you can. And thank you so much for your time today, Erika. I so appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. You're amazing.
And thank you to all of my listeners. Take what you've heard, run with it. And I want to know more about your morning routine. Are you a morning person? Do you get up at 4:30 in the morning or do you sleep until about 8 like myself? Everyone is different. I want to hear more though. So head on over to the Business Straight Up community at businessstraightup.com/community. Keep moving forward through all of these challenges that come up, all of these life situations that come up, whether they're global or small, and look at additional ways that you can share your expertise and really impact the people that you want to work with. I can't wait to see what you do with your business and how you change the world. Thank you so much. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening to Business Straight Up. I'm so glad that you could join us today. Check out the show notes for this and all of the episodes at businessstraightuppodcast.com. And I can't wait to talk with you again. Have a great day.